Pretty much every Nancy Drew fan hates the Shattered Medallion. I want to like it, but it's bad. The graphics are great, and the announcer has some funny jokes. Those are pretty much the only compliments I can give this game without getting any pushback. Even the good parts have bad elements. Like, I love the premise. Nancy's competing in an action-packed reality show in New Zealand. That should be a surefire success. But they screwed it up. The challenges are terrible things, like sorting flowers and labeling a sheep display. It is so boring, nobody would watch this show in real life. I like how this game introduces Sonny Joon. It's great we finally get to meet this fun character. The voice actor nails his personality, and he looks fine. Everyone agrees he looks way better on the game's cover. But even good stuff like, wow, cool premise, Sonny Joon, is bad. Sonny's a letdown. He doesn't reference Coco Kringles or previous games. He doesn't make funny doodles or slack off in humorous ways like he did in games 7 and 14. I expected him to be 80% funny, but instead he's 20% funny and 80% weird alien stuff that I would dislike even if it didn't hijack the entire plot. The game starts with a letter from Bess saying Nancy and George will be on a reality show. The announcer introduces all of the competitors. At the end of the day, I think I like the announcer more than I like Sonny. There are only 3 competitors. Technically there's 18 competitors, but only 3 of them appear. That's a problem with the game. It doesn't feel like a tense competition when 80% of the players are completely ignored. Sonny introduces himself as the producer. He explains the rules of the game, which brings me to another problem. The rules are stupid. I understand the winner is whoever has the most points. That's how most games work. But we never get told how you earn points in the game. At the end of stage 1, Nancy has 20 points. I have no idea what she did to earn them. She has 20 points if you did most of the challenge or none of the challenge. So clearly, doing the challenge is irrelevant to your point total. Another dumb thing about the rules is how they end each stage. It's hard for these rules not to be dumb, because Nancy can complete the first 4 stages in any order you want. You can complete stage 4 before stage 1. It doesn't make sense. In real life, the show would force all the teams to go through all the stages in order. Another dumb thing about the rules is that each stage eliminates 2 teams before they give out points for 2nd place and 3rd place. That's so unfair. They should give out all the points for a stage before deciding who lost, not the other way around. The first challenge of the game is a puzzle with train tracks. You swap tiles until you have a full set of tracks. I always have trouble with this puzzle. When you solve it, you get a chip which gives you access to the game map. Did you notice nobody else is around when Nancy solves the train puzzle? That's boring. On a TV show, they'd have all the teams compete at the same time. There'd be lots of screaming and cheering. George would say stuff like, "No, Nancy, that piece goes on the left! The left! Oh, hurry up, Lena's already done!" That would be exciting. We get a little of that in the tiebreaker stage where Bess talks in between puzzles. And you know what? That's the only time it feels like Nancy is actually competing against someone. The rest of the game is Nancy all alone, occasionally solving puzzles with no time limit. We're told the other players are doing challenges, but we never see them do anything. The only time you see the others, they're standing around at base camp doing nothing. It sure doesn't feel like you're racing against them. It's kind of worse with Nancy's friends. Since you only play as Nancy, her teammates are useless in the competition. Bess and George never do anything to help. Do they even want to win? If Nancy was in the competition by herself without any teammates, you would not be able to tell the difference. The game should have started with Nancy solving the trains puzzle for part of the clue. Nancy meets all the other characters, while George does her own puzzle for the rest of the clue. Nancy and George put their clues together in a puzzle that reveals their destination is the rope bridge. I made that up off the top of my head, and it would be 10 times better than what we have, which is plant collecting. That's the first stage. Nancy has to find 5 different plants. Besides for the base camp, the only place you can reach is Doubtful Sound. It's got a kayaking area where you find a plant. I just noticed they messed up the graphics here. There are 2 plants on the beach. After Nancy picks one, there are 3. They mixed up the 2 screens. Since there's not enough cacao plant for everyone, I guess that means teams were given different plants to collect? Well, that's not very fair. On the other hand, if you go down the path, Nancy finds 10 planter boxes with Mount Cook lilies, which makes it seem like every team has to get the lilies for the challenge. After you get the lily, Nancy overhears Patrick and Lena. I'm sure this scene confuses first-time players because Nancy hasn't met those characters yet. Patrick is very upset. Lena kinda makes fun of him for being scared. Lena drops a paper with the code to her backpack. The writing on the paper says Lena sent Patrick to get Sonny's copy of the show rules. Patrick wasn't able to get anything. It's unclear if Sonny doesn't have a producer's only rulebook, or if Patrick is too stupid to understand what Lena wanted. The game just started. I don't know how Lena and Patrick found the time for so many trips to Sonny this early on. I also don't know why they communicate by note instead of talking to each other. You can call your partner on the phone in this game. I usually don't. I would rather talk to Bess and George to their faces. All the phone calls are optional. I have to imagine some players got through the entire game without realizing their in-person friends double as phone contacts. The first time you look at the map screen, Nancy gets a text saying you must go to the Puzzle Palace to unlock another location. I wish Nancy automatically checked her text messages every time she gets one. More than once I've accidentally missed a text about the events of the game. The Puzzle Palace has one of the plants you need, along with Raid and Monster from Game 24. I don't know why they picked 2 mini-games from the same game. I would have taken them from separate games, just for the sake of variety. The games are optional. I assume you get points for playing them. If so, why is George doing nothing at camp? She should be here in the Puzzle Palace, replaying the games constantly until Team Tui has maximum points. That would be a legitimate strategy for winning Pacific Run. The Puzzle Palace has dioramas on natural disasters and an earthquake simulator. Those seem useless. I know you can get a letter and a death scene in the earthquake simulator near the end of the game. I am amazed someone discovered those scenes. Who wanted to use the earthquake room 2 hours into the game? The large puzzle screen has a decent puzzle. Find all 21 differences between the 4 pictures. For example, the kite is a different color in 2 pictures. A line appears connecting the different things. I enjoy this puzzle. It feels like something from a highlights magazine. When you're done, there are 8 letters. Unscramble them to get the password Woolshed. That unlocks the Mossburn location on the map. Mossburn has a locked woolshed, another plant you need, and a very obvious tunnel to the waterfall. It's so obvious you can go through this tunnel. You can even see the area it leads to from the bridge. Nancy's kind of dumb though, so she doesn't realize she can go through the tunnel until she sees a picture of it. When you reach the bridge, George appears out of nowhere. She's surprisingly enthusiastic about using a rope bridge. Yeah, rope bridges! It sounds like she's wanted to use one her entire life. Her life might not be too long because the rope snaps and the bridge falls. George plunges into the waters below. For a moment, the game pretends George is dead for real. It's cute how gullible they think I am. George is fine, she just has a broken leg and arm, and will spend the rest of the game in the first aid tent. Nancy promises to find out what happened with the bridge, and that's a big problem with the game. She doesn't. Nancy completely ignores the mystery. Does she not care that someone tried to kill her friend? George says she has access to a producer feed, which we never see. Either she's lying or she's not sharing this cool footage. Either way, she's a jerk. George has a TV with some confessionals on it. Most of them are jokes featuring the teams that Nancy never sees. They're fun, but you can safely ignore them. And George. Sorry, George. I'm disappointed Nancy never uses the confessional in this game. I think that could have made for a good puzzle. There's a confessional near the leaderboards. If you click on it, Nancy says she'd rather talk to herself like she always does. That's a good joke. George gives Nancy a key to the producer area. Nancy has to be sneaky about it, because nobody's allowed in the producer area. If Nancy is seen, she could be kicked off the show. I have to say, it's kind of dumb to put the first aid tent in the off-limits area. All that does is punish people who need first aid. Also, if first aid is so off-limits, you need a key to get there. How did Nancy get to the first aid tent in order to have this conversation with George? Nancy says Bess is going to join the team. George has a hard time believing Bess volunteered to help, which is followed by a scene where Bess admits she's probably going to die. It's pretty funny, but at the same time, George did nothing to help with the competition so far. She is not in a position to criticize Bess for being an unhelpful teammate. After George is hurt, 4 new characters appear in the base camp. I think it's pretty weird that most of the characters aren't there for the first 20 minutes of the game. It's especially weird for the culprit. We're supposed to believe the culprit wanted to kill George long before she first met Nancy or George. It doesn't make sense. Patrick is the only character you can talk to in the first part of the game. Sadly, it's clear from the get-go that the conversations in this game are just awful. I had issues with the dialogue in the previous 4 games, but this one is by far the worst of the bunch. There are so many lines which are weird and make no sense. I'm constantly confused when trying to understand what the characters are saying. It ruins the game, quite honestly. The game has other big problems, but I think the terrible dialogue is the biggest problem. If you took a fan-favorite game like Secret of Shadow Ranch and replaced it with dialogue in the style of this game, people would hate Secret of Shadow Ranch. The first conversation with Patrick is the one that stands out in my mind. Patrick refuses to go kayaking. When Nancy asks why, Patrick says he's muscular, like a gorilla. That response makes no sense at all. It is random and has nothing to do with what Nancy said. If Nancy had asked, "What animal do you most resemble and why?" then it would make sense to say, "I'm muscular, like a gorilla." But Nancy asked about kayaking. Gorillas are not relevant. Patrick continues, saying that, like a gorilla, he always sinks when he's in the water. This leads to his big question, can gorillas swim? Patrick is pretty sure they can't. That's the line which always gets me. Can gorillas swim? It's such a dumb conversation. And sadly, Patrick's appearance at the end of the game is centered around the fact that gorillas can't swim. In the game's defense, all of the Patrick conversations are dumb, not just this one. Patrick is stupid and says things that don't make sense. That's kind of the joke to him. I will admit some of the dumb Patrick jokes are funny. Still, in my mind, can gorillas swim stands out as the worst, dumbest conversation of the game. Patrick's girlfriend Lena is okay, I guess. I find her kind of forgettable, partly because she does nothing in the last hour of the game. She basically disappears after solving the piano lesson code. It's weird that she and Patrick don't get mentioned during the last 2 stages of the competition. What was the point of giving them so much focus in stages 2 and 3, only to pretend they don't exist after that? Both Lena and Kiri are tough competitors who will stop at nothing to win. Lena's edge is that she's a genius, while Kiri is more of a backstabbing diva. They would probably be great characters on a reality TV show. Too bad this isn't a TV show, it's a video game. And as I explained earlier, the game has no sense of competition. It doesn't work to have these competitive characters in a non-competition. I would love it if there was a puzzle where you went head-to-head against Lena. That would be fun! But we never see her outside of the camp. It's a total waste. Bess is also in the camp. She's okay in this game, although I would have given her a different hairdo, and there's something about her eyes that kind of creeps me out. Sometimes Bess is her normal funny self, but most of the time she's just sad and feels useless. She's especially sad that she gets tongue-tied and empty-brained whenever Sonny is around. I wish we actually saw one of these awkward conversations between Sonny and Bess. When you leave camp, Nancy meets Kiri. They explain that Kiri's partner Aaron tried to save George. Like George, Aaron was so badly injured, she was forced to quit the competition. I wonder why she's not in the first aid tent, and why Nancy didn't try to save George. Maybe Aaron was closer, I don't know. Kiri has been on a lot of reality shows before. Nancy says they're trashy TV, but they sound more interesting than this game, that's for sure. Players have the option of forming an alliance with Kiri. The alliance storyline has some potential, but it's all wasted. The alliance has no effect on anything. The first 4 stages of the game are the same, whether you form an alliance or not. The alliance doesn't matter until stage 5, where you have to ally with Kiri in order to get the book for the Maori art puzzle. The last character that appears is Sonny Joon. He openly admits he's not supposed to be the producer. He messed up the paperwork for the real producers, so now they're stranded in another country. As we'll find out later, Sonny did this on purpose, as part of his plot to find aliens. That's it for the characters. Getting back to the competition, Nancy has to go to the bridge to find the final plant. There's a good bridge puzzle here. You can move 1 or 2 squares in any direction, and you can only touch each square once. You have to touch all the squares to reach the end. I especially like the animation of the squares crumbling. It looks cool. Nancy goes across the bridge and gets the fern, but she's too late. Lena's team just won the first stage. Lena did all the work while Patrick did nothing. I feel kind of bad for Lena. Patrick should be a good partner in the competition because he's a great athlete. I would want him on my team in a sports reality show. But since Patrick won't kayak, and that is the only physical challenge, he's useless. Poor Lena is forced to do everything herself. Honestly, Lena and Kiri should have formed an alliance. They would have made an unstoppable duo. The announcer complains that Nancy's team should have been eliminated because they were in last place, but Sonny bends the rules for them. That's nice of him, and it makes sense. Nancy was only 1 plant away from finishing when the bridge incident occurred. She would have gotten first place normally. On a more cynical note, it's clear that Sonny is cheating to keep Nancy in the game. That takes all the challenge and surprise out of things. It's a no-stakes competition when you know that Nancy will make it to the final stage no matter what you do. But that's just sort of complaining. I'm sure the smart players have already figured out which teams are making it to the finals by now. When Nancy has all the plants, she has to sort them into correct vases. I think there's a book somewhere which helps with this challenge. I forget. Solving the puzzle gives you a medallion which you put on the board for points. Nancy gets a text saying the wool shed has been unlocked. Stage 2's challenge is sheep shearing. Near Kiri is a book about sheep, which has the number 20, unlocks the shearing equipment. Go to the wool shed. There's a puzzle on the equipment stall. You need to flip plates, so every row and column equals 20. Some flip vertically, some flip horizontally. I think this is a good, unique puzzle. I've been pretty negative about the game so far, but I do enjoy a lot of the puzzles. Solving the puzzle gives you shears along with some flint. You put the shears on the razor at the far end of the shed. There are 2 more steps. Get the key that's hidden in the sheep display. Use it on the motor box on the wall. You also want to fix the red machine on the ceiling. It has 12 blades. You want to get all of them to lie flat. This is an okay puzzle. Although I usually try to get the solution through random clicking, instead of figuring out the rules of which blades are connected to each other. Nancy shears the sheep, and oh yeah, you need to buy a bag of wool from the store near the map area. You can use your team's points to buy souvenirs from the store, but why would you do that? You need your points to win the competition. I have zero sympathy for whatever team lost the competition because they wasted all of their points buying coffee mugs. The only good thing in the store is the 50-point card, which costs 20 points. If the points actually mattered in this game, that would be a great deal. The game always ends with a tie between Kiri and Nancy. I find it amusing that you can buy everything in the store at the last second, and Kiri's score will magically drop down to match Nancy's. Nancy buys a bag from the store. I'm pretty sure it's the same as the cotton bag from Ghosts of Thornton Hall. Put the wool inside, then put it in the receptacle on the left. I just realized the receptacle has places for 9 teams. It shouldn't, though. There were only supposed to be 8 teams in Stage 2. Sonny broke the rules by letting Nancy's team continue. The people who made the receptacle couldn't have known about the change in team numbers in advance. Whatever, the compartment for Nancy's team opens up, revealing that Lena stole Nancy's medallion. Dun dun dun. Lena left behind a scrap of her team flag just to taunt Nancy. The announcer interrupts, saying Lena won the stage. Unlike last time, Patrick's picture is included in the victory announcement. I wonder if that means he did something to help. The announcer comments that not one contestant located a single sheep in this stage. That's true, but it's a weird insult. They weren't supposed to find sheep for this challenge. If you confront Lena about the stolen medallion, she claims she technically didn't break the rules. The rules say you can't remove another team's medallion, but she moved the medallion only once. This is dumb wordplay. That's not what remove means. I just checked the dictionary, and sure enough, the word remove means take away. It does not mean move more than once. Nancy should definitely take up the issue with Sonny to get Lena kicked out of the competition. Lena later admits she stole the medallions from multiple teams, not just Nancy's. If Lena was smart, she would have dumped all the medallions in the lake where no one could find them. Lena definitely would have won the competition that way. Instead, Lena set up a bunch of coded messages which say where the medallions are hidden. Nancy only finds the code for her medallion, but it would have been cool if she found some of the other stolen medallions. Nancy tells Bess to distract Patrick so she can get into Lena's tent. Inside is a clipboard and the instructions for the spaceships puzzle. You open the lock on Lena's backpack with the numbers from her first note. Inside is a points card and an arrows puzzle. They match the arrows on Lena's clipboard. North is the blue word near the up arrow, so blue up means N. It's a good puzzle. I wonder if there could be a harder version of the puzzle where you have to enter the directions north, south, east, west, and up, down, left, right. You put those directions on the arrows before solving. Lena's note says, under nest in tree, doubtful sound. Go there for a death scene. There's a sudden landslide, and if you don't back away, Nancy is crushed. I guess it's an okay death scene. It's similar to the cube death scene in the Puzzle Palace. If you don't back away, a purple cube crushes Nancy. It's anyone's guess if these were accidents or attempted murder. I'd prefer it if the death scenes were tied to the show challenges. The show would be a lot more intense if there was a chance of death. It's too bad the challenges are non-dangerous things like plant picking. When you first enter the wool shed, you get a text that unlocks a word search puzzle in the Puzzle Palace. This puzzle uses Maori words, which is kind of interesting, but I think word search is kind of a boring challenge. Solving the puzzle gives you a phone, which you can use later on. It's a silly looking phone. I like it, even if it makes no sense that Nancy is given a phone when she already has a phone. The word search puzzle also gives you the password to the submarine hatch. Stage 3 starts when you find Lena's clipboard. Your goal is to go to the submarine area and find 5 tiki pieces. The instructions specifically say follow the butterflies. I never understood that part. There are no butterflies in the underwater area. To access the submarines, you have to solve a blocks puzzle. This looks like the 3D block puzzle from Game 27. It's okay, not my favorite. Nancy takes a submarine underwater. Using the submarine controls is practically a puzzle on its own. There are 23 places on the map. You can face in 4 different directions in each place. But wait, there's more! You have 3 altitudes in each direction, making a grand total of 276 places in this maze. 5 of them have the treasure chest you want. Use the claw in the correct 5 spots to solve the puzzle. It's a little easier than it sounds, because you can usually see a treasure chest from more than one viewpoint. You can only pick it up from one viewpoint, though. If you make a single mistake, you'll have to do the blocks puzzle again. Once you get all the tiki pieces, put the tiki in the turn-in slot next to the blocks puzzle. Nancy gets a text saying part 2 of the challenge is labeling the sheep display in the wool shed. This is so random. Why did they connect the sheep display to the submarines? It would have made more sense if this was part 2 of the sheep shearing stage. Also, none of the other stages have a part 2. Why does this one? It's easy enough, though. Use the sheep book to put the labels on the correct sheep. Nancy gets a fish, which she puts in the submarine area for a medallion. She's too late, as the announcer interrupts to say Kiri just finished the stage. I suppose that means Kiri's fish was located somewhere else. Either that, or an invisible intern has to reset the sheep puzzle every time a contestant solves it. When stage 3 ends, you get a text for stage 4, get a pick and a book from the display, then go to the mines. The instructions fail to say you need a pan from the store, and you must do the kayaking challenge first. The kayaking challenge is to hit the start button, touch all 5 buoys in the correct order, then hit the start button again. It's more of a maze than a race, because you have to follow a specific route with many turns. If you're too slow, you have to try again. Winning the challenge gives you the password to the mines. You can do the kayaking challenge earlier, but there's no real point in going to the mines early. There's 3 or 4 mining caves. I'm not sure of the number because they all look so similar. I get them confused. One area has a dirt wall and buckets. Use a pick on the dirt, then take the bucket to the sluice. You have a puzzle fixing the sluice fans. You have to put 6 pieces on the board so each fan is complete. It's a good puzzle, and it's easier than it seems because there are 4 different solutions. Put the dirt in the sluice and turn it on for a bucket of sand. Turn around to the river. Use the sand on the pan, use the pan on the water a few times. You get gold flakes, which are put on the scale for the medallion. When you put the medallion in place, the announcer is shocked Bess Marvin's team finally won a stage. To be fair, Bess had nothing to do with this victory. It was all Nancy. Nancy gets a text saying the final stage at Lake Teanau is unlocked. You're not given the password for the area until you've turned in the medallions from the first 4 stages. The challenge is inside a dark cave. You have a grid puzzle turning the lights on. Move the 12 circles so each grid section has a circle. The number of dots on a circle indicate how far it can be moved. The movement lines can't overlap. This puzzle is too tough for me, but I enjoy it anyway. It's so creative. How did they even come up with a puzzle like this? When the caves light up, you can start the challenge. You use flint to light the bowl in the back. A strange picture appears on the wall. Nancy has to get the Maori art book from Kiri to solve the puzzle. You want to recreate 5 Maori symbols on the screen. When you solve the puzzle, you find Sonny replaced your last medallion with a card that reads, "Sonny was here." Nancy confronts Sonny, and for once he promises to give her a straight answer about what's going on. He immediately backtracks, saying he'll tell you the truth later. Dude, that's not helpful. I didn't double check this, but I'm pretty sure Sonny won't help you out here, unless you've gotten all of the comics and relics. You could have started working on these side challenges sooner. The first one starts after George is injured. Use the key George gives you in the box in the producer's area. You have a puzzle where you place blocks on the board. A block closes any camera in the same row, column, or diagonal. Close all the cameras to win. There are 3 rounds, and I definitely enjoy this puzzle. It's a good one. Solving the puzzle lets you visit the producer's area. Sonny's tent has comics and a locked trunk. The cabinet has a Spide pamphlet, along with a letter from Sonny's grandfather Jin, the founder of Spide. I thought Jamila and the spied alien stuff was the worst part of Game 26. I'm very unhappy that we get a lot more alien stuff in this game. Jin says they have to stop the world from exploding by finding artifacts from the aliens who built the pyramids. These aliens have not done anything since teaching humans about subatomic particles. That's because the aliens are waiting to receive a beacon, which can only be constructed from hidden artifacts. It sounds like I'm joking, but that is actually the plot of the game. Sonny wants to find an alien artifact in New Zealand. He hijacked the TV show so he could force the contestants to help him. Sonny has a special assignment for every character except Bess. Sorry, Bess. I've probably said this before, but Sonny's scheme is overly complicated and unnecessary. I'm pretty sure if he gave Lena $1,000, she would crack Jin's coded message with no questions asked. Same with George, whose mission is to analyze some blueprints and figure out what colors go in the corners. There was no need to bring her all the way to New Zealand for that. She could have looked at the blueprints remotely. It's harder to tell with Nancy. Sonny says, he only needed her for the colors puzzle. But Nancy ends up solving almost every puzzle for him. It's possible she's just an overachiever that way. I could believe it if Sonny's original plan was for Lena, Kiri, and Nancy to find one relic part each. It's unclear how much of the game is planned by Sonny and how much is Sonny following Jin's orders. All the comics we find are signed by Jin, not Sonny. I'm curious how Jin knows where all the relics are and what must be done in order to obtain them, but I'm sure the answer would be more dumb alien stuff, not a real explanation. I suspect the game would be more popular if Sonny was looking for something else, like an ancient treasure, or a life-size jade statue, or a copy of the movie Moana, or anything which is not, oh my gosh, aliens are real! Another problem with the alien story is that it's too disconnected from the reality show storyline. Which characters know that Sonny is collecting alien artifacts? There's Nancy. Just Nancy. Nobody else knows or cares about the alien stuff, including the culprit. Usually the culprit in these games is trying to get the valuable treasure for themselves, but in this case the treasure is a random side quest. Okay, I'll stop complaining about the dumb alien stuff now. People complain about the dialogue and the reality show parts of this game so often that I'm pretty sure the game would be unpopular even if the alien storyline was fixed. When you leave the tent, Sonny sees you. He purposely looks the other way. This triggers a conversation with Lena. She gives you some comics. She wants you to ask Sonny about them while leaving her name out of it. When you do, Sonny gives you more comics. I wish the comics in this game were numbered or that Nancy threw out irrelevant pages or something, because it's a pain to sort through them, especially at the end of the game when you have 20 of these things. It's not like the comics are particularly interesting or funny either. Jamila's phone number is on Sonny's spied pamphlet. You can call her from the Puzzle Palace. She gives you the combination to Sonny's trunk using convoluted clues like the number in Chapter 2, and the chapter referenced in Chapter 5. The solution is 6583. Sonny's trunk has more comics and a long coded message called the piano lesson. Nancy's usually pretty good at solving coded messages, but she's not even gonna try with this one. She gives it to Lena. Lena agrees to crack the code in exchange for a points card. Nancy forces Bess to get the points card, which is Bess's only contribution to the reality show competition. She gets 100 points for a different team. Nancy asks Lena if she's met Jin. Lena says, yes, how did you know? Nancy changes the subject instead of answering. Darn, I was hoping to hear the answer to that question. How did Nancy know Lena's the only person here who's met Sonny's grandfather? Lena translates the piano lesson. The red words say to mine below the anchorite vein. When Nancy does that, she finds a diagram for the last puzzle of the game. Other red words say light the lantern in the mines. When Nancy does that, she gets a key. I wonder why Lena didn't solve these puzzles herself. It's fairly obvious the red words were puzzle instructions. The key opens up the spaceship puzzle behind the waterfall. Lena had the instructions for that puzzle, and Nancy can't reach this area until she asks Sonny about the comic Lena found. That's 3 ways Lena is connected to this particular relic. I suspect finding this relic was supposed to be Lena's special quest, only Nancy hijacked it. The spaceship's puzzle is okay. I don't like it much, but it's a legitimate puzzle. I've seen it in puzzle magazines before. Kiri also has a special quest to get a relic. There's a comic near the Stage 5 fire area. It indicates there's something in the caves. Nancy goes there to see Kiri solving a word puzzle. Kiri is scared off by a minor cave-in. The cave-in is actually a good thing for Nancy. It opens up the cave, which was previously closed. Kiri's an acrobat, so she was the only one who could enter through the small opening. There are letter tiles on the wall. Nancy rotates them to spell out 2 words, ominous and omniscient. That certainly is ominous. Solving the puzzle gives you a relic. Kiri dropped the paper containing Sonny's instructions about this quest. When you exit the mines, you overhear Kiri yelling at Sonny. Kiri says she can destroy him. Save the drama for the confessionals, Kiri. The last relic is found during Nancy's special quest. It starts when Nancy fixes the sheep display. Bess calls, saying she just got Nancy's quest. I have no idea why Sonny gave Nancy's quest to Bess. Why didn't he give it to Nancy? The only thing Bess remembers is the word turtle, which is unhelpful. On a side note, Bess's special quest was to go a whole hour without talking. That is so mean-spirited. When you ask Sonny, he says turtle was the last word of the quest, not the only word. He gives you a 4-page comic about turtles. The last comic has the puzzle solution on it. So it's a good thing Bess forgot the quest details. If Nancy hadn't asked for clarification, she wouldn't have gotten this comic, and the puzzle would have been unsolvable. Sonny says you should check your phone for a special message about the show. The message says Nancy's side quest is worth 70 points. That's not very important or special. I wonder if Nancy was originally going to get a different text here. Nancy's quest is to explore the life of the leatherback turtle. There's a turtle display in the submarine area. Connect the dots on the turtle shell to spell out Blubbagum, which was in Sonny's comic. This gives you a poem, which says to use the submarine arm in a specific location. This gives you a relic and a death scene. If you don't leave the submarine maze in time, Nancy dies because of... I forget what, but I'm pretty sure she dies here. Once Nancy has all the comics and the 3 relics, Sonny gives her the medallion and tells her to go beat Kiri. Just in time, too. Kiri marches into camp with her final medallion. Nancy throws the medallion to Bess. Kiri and Bess place their medallions at the same time. It's unclear who did it first. Sonny declares their scores are tied, and it's time for a sudden death tiebreaker challenge. I don't like this puzzle. It's 4 minutes of opening and closing tubes to make patterns. It's tough, it requires thinking ahead and moving quickly in some places. I don't find it enjoyable. The announcer says Nancy Drew has just won Pacific Run, but Sonny interrupts with alien stuff. He orders Nancy to get a rope and meet him in the caves. A rope appears on a table at this point. You want to pick it up. Sonny left a sign showing where to use the rope. Nancy uses the rope here to descend into the caves. She finds a strange device built into the rock wall. George calls. She just figured out the blueprints for the device. She tells you what color the corner pieces should be. This is similar to a monkey game in Ransom of the 7 Ships. You have 4 colors. You want to color all 37 spaces. 2 spaces of the same color cannot touch each other. It's not my favorite, but I like it far more than the tiebreaker puzzle or the final puzzle that's coming up soon. Solving the puzzle reveals a lever. Pulling it drains a lot of the water out of the caves. This is when we get a poorly done culprit confrontation. I can't tell if this is better or worse than the last game, where the culprit confrontation was 2 sentences. It's a little hard to tell what's even going on in this scene because it's dark and Curie is far away. You have to look very carefully to see she has a knife. It would have been helpful if Curie said something about cutting the rope, just to make it obvious that's what she's doing here. The dialogue is as bad as always. It feels like Nancy and Curie are having two separate conversations. Nancy says things like, "We could die down here. There are other ways to get what you want," as if Curie is actively threatening them, when Curie is actually saying things like, "You want to hear a joke? Fine, I'll skip to the punchline. You'll be fine. Oh, hi, Sonny." Curie says she wants to make Nancy pay for her betrayal. This motive makes no sense. Nancy never betrayed Curie. Curie should have said something like, "I deserve to be the winner of Pacific Run. Sonny's been cheating, secretly helping you this whole time." That would have made a lot more sense. The game doesn't even try to explain why Curie attempted to kill George during the flower picking challenge. It's almost like the developers couldn't figure out a good reason for Curie to murder a total stranger, so they decided to ignore it and hope no one would notice. Curie cuts the rope, which is honestly not much of a problem. As George's phone call just proved, there's phone reception down here. Nancy could easily call George for help. Nancy and Sonny explore the caves, which is what they were doing before Curie interrupted. In fact, you could cut the entire Curie confrontation out of the game and players wouldn't notice the difference. The lights turn off. There's a moment as Nancy's eyes adjust to the darkness. Sonny walks into view holding a raft. How? What? Where did the raft come from? He points to the drained cave area and says, "It's down there." Nancy says she's not falling for that, so Sonny pushes her. I don't know why, but I find this scene hilarious. Sonny pushes Nancy in the wrong direction, though. That's not where he pointed when he said where they should go. Maybe the cave river loops around or something. The next scene's a fun one. Nancy and Sonny are rafting through the caves. You have to go left and right, following Sonny's instructions. He has funny, weird instructions, like, "Go towards the lightning bolt. Avoid the thing that looks like giant fangs." Nancy and Sonny end up somewhere. It's not clear where. Sonny complains, "There's nothing here, Jin!" He's upset that the alien stories were made up. His grandfather lied to him for years. There's a hole in the roof. Patrick calls through it, but he can't hear what's being said, so he gets closer and accidentally falls inside. From where he's standing, Patrick can see something at the bottom of the deep water here. Patrick can't swim, just like a gorilla. He jumps into the water and walks along the bottom until he reaches an underwater lever. He pulls it to drain all the water out of the room. We're supposed to assume that aliens built these cave draining levers, right? Because in real life, you can't flush water out of a cave like it's a giant toilet. Sonny is happy to see his grandfather was telling the truth. He and Nancy go down to a pedestal where Sonny gives Nancy the final piece of the relic. You have to put the 4 relic pieces down in the proper order, then solve the puzzle. I don't like this puzzle. I've never understood it. Every time I try to solve it on my own, I fail. You're supposed to combine Jin's notebook with the symbols in the comics, but I don't get it. It feels like there's an extra step which wasn't explained. The first time I played the game, I copied the solution from the task list hints, and that's the solution I use every time. The game is so bad, I suppose it's only appropriate to end on a bad, confusing puzzle. When you're done, the artifact spins into place. Stars are projected onto the ceiling, as Nancy and Sonny get philosophical about the nature of truth and belief. I don't like this. The entire game builds up to this big moment of fixing the relic, and what do we get? Nothing! Just some pretty stars on the ceiling. What was the point of all that? It's implied these stars lead to some kind of alien thing. Maybe it's a map that only makes sense when combined with the artifact Jin's reconstructing. Who cares? Finding this thing was a colossal waste of time. Bess arrives with a rope to pull everyone to safety. Now I'm really curious as to where Nancy is. both Bess and Patrick seem to find this place without much trouble. I'm surprised Jin made Sonny take the rafting route to this artifact, when apparently there is a better, more convenient entrance which is easy to find. Nancy's ending letter brags that her team won the reality show. They found video footage which proves Kiri tried to kill George. Kiri confessed, and she's rewarded with a new TV show called Detained Diva. I hope this is a joke because it sounds like Kiri got a happy ending. Patrick learns to swim, and Lena's happy to solve the codes in Jin's books. I'm mad at this casual revelation that Jin left multiple books that we didn't get to read. I bet finding the artifact would have been a lot easier if we had all the information from the start. The rest of the ending is silly pictures of Bess and George exploring New Zealand. George is sleeping in half of them. So that's Nancy Drew, The Shattered Medallion. It's really bad, and I'd recommend skipping it. Whenever people pick the worst game of the series, they either pick this one or Midnight in Salem. I rank those games at the bottom of the series, along with games 15 and 20. Hindsight is 2020, but when you consider how bad this game is, it's less of a surprise that the company was basically forced to shut down and stop making games less than a year after this. It looks like I gave this game 2 points in my official score. I forget why. Let's say it was for the music and graphics. These graphics are way better than the game deserves. If only Her Interactive had put their time and effort into doing a graphics upgrade for games 1 through 14 instead of this. I give Nancy Drew number 30, The Shattered Medallion, a 2 out of 10.